right, guys, so thanks for having me. I'm Bianca Beers, and today we're talking on the topic insecure. When Nicole first reached out to me, she remarked at how confident and bold, I guess, I come off as, but I chose these two photos here just to highlight the fact that A, that isn't by mistake, and B, it wasn't always the case. So the first picture here was taken when I was about 5 years old. As you can see, I'm hiding behind my mom, super shy, nervous, and anxious, which I guess you could say sums up my vibe for most of my life, up until about 4 years ago. And the second photo is one that I had taken about 3 months ago for some headshots. And I gotta say, I think I look damn good. That is to say that I've actually put a lot of conscious work into recognizing my own insecurities and fears and transforming them, which we're gonna talk a little bit about today. All right, so before we get into it, I just want to tell you a little bit of the structure so we know where we're at and what we're getting into. First, we're going to hit on what is insecurity. I'm going to give you a little bit about me, my journey as a creative, and my insecurities. Then we're going to go on to identifying your insecurities, so your own personal insecurities. And I'm going to give you some tools to transform them, which is going to be really fun. Feel free to do it while we're doing the discussion if you have a pen and paper handy, but otherwise it's cool too if you just come back to this later. Then we close, yay. So before we get into it, I just wanted to get your mind bubbling on this. I was actually going to leave it open to the chat, but I think it's hard for me to see what's going on in the chat while I've got the presentation going. So I think maybe, feel free to pop it in the chat as well so you guys can see if you have similar insecurities or fears, but I just want to get you thinking about what you're insecure about. And I featured a picture of Lizzo, who is my absolute idol because she is just so bold and fierce and doesn't give two Fs about anything. So have a think about that. Feel free to write it down or just have a think in your head, pop it in the chat as we move forward. What is insecurity? So I actually looked it up yesterday on my little Oxford dictionary. It's classified as uncertainty or anxiety about an event. It definitely stems from fear. And something I've noticed is that the most two common fears are fear of judgment and fear of failure. So the way I see that is fear of the outside, fear of the community judging you, fear of your community rejecting you. And then the second fear of failure, I think, is a bit more personal. So it's more of a fear of letting yourself down, not realizing your potential or your dreams. So one is more external and one's more internal. It's like a duality type thing. But the root of all these fears, I think, is just like an undertone of not being good enough. And that could be in any way you want to think about it. Maybe you don't feel like a good enough person, a good enough sibling or partner or parent or citizen or friend, colleague, writer, creative, what have you. The list literally goes on and on. We can all identify with that, I think. So before we go on, a bit about me and my journey. I'm going to share my own work, my projects, and my own insecurities that I personally deal with. So a bit of a vulnerable moment. So here's a selection of some of my work. As Nicole mentioned, I'm an artist, designer, and creator based in Sydney. A lot of my work is digital just because that's what the industry calls for at the moment, although I do really like to paint and draw. Something I really enjoy doing is customizing sneakers, which you can see here. I customize my own for my own fashion, but I also do it for brands as well. So I work a lot with brands for their advertising, for campaigns and launches, product launches, on sites, in stores. So I do a lot of sneaker customization for brands such as Puma, or the retail store Glue or Platypus, customizing clothing and sneakers for any customers when they come in. I also, I do a lot of work. I paint murals now as well, which is really awesome. But yeah, my favorite thing to do is probably draw portraits. I really love drawing faces and capturing people's character, their fashion, their style, the way they represent themselves in the world, which really, really excites me. So yeah, here's a selection of my work. As you can see, I have a penchant for color. It shows in my work, and I'm sure you will notice it will show in the slides as well. So I apologize for the color overload. My journey and some of the projects I've worked on. So I just wanted to show you a few, like a limited selection of the projects I have personally worked on. I'm going to talk about specific projects that triggered insecurities in me, which, had I let them get the better of me, would have really hindered my growth as an artist and a business and as a person as well. So the first one is a really horrible photo. It's the first project for any brand I ever booked back when I started. So this is literally the only representation of that project I have. It was when I first started. I started about 5 years ago on the side. I was working in retail at Platypus Sneakers, and I had only just gained the courage to start posting my work online, so on Instagram. And I think one of my managers saw my work and thought, hey, like that's really cool, and word got around the company. Pardon me. Word got around the company, and I think, I'm not too, if I'm remembering correctly, my regional manager asked me to draw something for Shoe Shine, which was their monthly magazine that they sent out to people and to the brands that they sold in store. So like Nike and Adidas and Vans and what have you. So they just wanted a small selection of the sneakers that they had in store, and then they were going to pop that in as a wrapping for the magazine and a little card, which, I mean, as you can see, it's nothing crazy. It's quite simple. But back when I was offered this opportunity, I felt so awesome. I was super excited, but at the same time, I was really nervous because I had never worked for anyone other than a friend, really. Mainly, I was just drawing for myself at that time. It was a side hustle on the side of my retail. So never done that before, let alone having many, many eyes on my work. And I actually had never drawn digitally before. This was my first time drawing digitally. Usually I drew with pen and paper, and there was just something about digital that was a bit tricky for me. It just didn't feel as natural. So I was really, really worried about the way my work would be perceived if it wasn't good enough. And I almost turned it down because this one actually wasn't paid. And I was kind of like, look, I'm not paid. I'm worried I could be horrible and everyone will think that I'm not a good artist, and then I'll never book anything again. And it's just not worth it. Maybe I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And had I not, I don't think I would have gotten my foot in the door with all these companies that I work with today. So I'm really glad in this instance, I just put my insecurities to the side and thought, nope, I'm going to do it. So yeah, this was my first ever project with a brand. It's nothing amazing, but I loved it at the time. Second, we'll get to, this is my first ever mural. In 2018, so 2 years ago. And this was for Absolute, the vodka brand, for their Mardi Gras campaign celebrating equality. So they basically came to me and asked me to design a mural, which obviously had to include the logo and the bottle. But other than that, I could do whatever I wanted to basically be fun and celebrate equality and love for Mardi Gras. So I mean, obviously we had to go with the rainbow, but I popped my own little flavor in there as well. And what was triggering my insecurities with this one is the fact that it was a mural. It was like 10 meters by 5 meters, I think. So 5 meters tall. Was it 5 meters or 3 meters? It was about 10 meters by something. Really, really big. I had never probably even painted on a canvas bigger than A2. So this was a massive jump for me, and I was worried that I wouldn't be able to get my work onto such a big canvas to scale and proportion right, and I was worried that I'd take too long, and what if I take months and months and then Mardi Gras is over and my mural's still going, and what if I don't paint right and the lines aren't clean? And I was just freaking out. Although it was like amazing, exciting opportunity, I'd never done a mural before, and to go from nothing to something so massive was really triggering my insecurities. But I'm glad I did, because that not only gave me a relationship with the brand, and I've worked with them since, but it also opened the doorway for more murals. So I've done a lot of murals since, and I have that ability under my belt now. It's not as daunting as it once was, but it still is pretty scary for me, because the majority of my work is smaller, more detailed, and digital. But it's exciting to do, and I'm glad that I put those insecurities to the side, because had I not, I would have way less clients and way less money than I do right now, and way less skills. Next one now is from my collab with Frank Body. If you guys know Frank Body, they're an amazing beauty skincare brand. I've always loved them and loved the brand ever since they came out. Was this 2018? I think this one was for 2018, their campaign for Valentine's Day. So it was in collaboration with a rosé brand from the States, and they were having a release party for their collaboration in the US, and wanted a bunch of gifts made for social media for people at the event and for everyone to use on social media, just around the campaign of loving yourself, self-love. So it was a little bit cheeky. The concept was a lot about self-love, self-served, if you can understand what I'm getting at there. So yeah, it was super, super fun. Here though, again, was when my insecurities were triggered. First of all, it was a brand I really, really loved, and I wanted to nail it, and I wasn't sure I could get the vibe right for them, because they're very cutesy pastels and oranges, and I just wasn't sure that I'd be able to deliver that. But at the same time, I had never done gifts before, so that was a completely new realm that I had never tried. And something I read in, I think it was a Richard Branson book, was just say yes and then figure out how to do it later. So that's something I've tried to adopt in my life now. But yeah, I just said yes. I know how to do gifts. I could do that for you. And then just immediately hopped on Google and tried to find out how to make gifts. But yeah, it worked out. We made 9 in total. I haven't included some of them because they're a bit raunchy. If you like, feel free to message me later and ask what they were. I wish they went live, but they're just a bit too cheeky. So yeah, only some of them got through. And the last campaign that I'd love to talk about, which triggered my insecurities, but glad I overcame them, was one with Nike, which I did only this past November. So I've drawn live in front of people before. As I mentioned, I often do live customization of sneakers or clothing, which often people want something like a cat or a house plant or a crocodile or a smiley face or something like that, which is super easy to draw. It's like an icon, really, really simple and easy to draw in front of someone. But Nike contacted me and they said, look, Bianca, we've got an event coming up. We'd love you to draw portraits of everyone that comes through to the event. And you've got like 5 to 10 minutes to draw everyone. And I was freaking out because I have anxiety drawing in front of people as it is. It really scares me. And the fact that I had to draw someone in front of them, first of all, and second of all, in such a short, limited time, was scary. It really triggered my insecurity. What if I'm not good enough? What if they don't like how I've drawn them? What if they think they look ugly? What if I get the arms the wrong length of the legs? Or what if my computer stuffs up, and I look like a failure that doesn't know what they're doing? And all these types of insecurities popped up. And at the time I was in New York when they called me, and the event was in Sydney in like 3 days. So I had that excuse if I wanted to just say, you know what? No, I'm in New York. I'm just going to stay here. You can find someone else maybe next time. But I thought, look, this is Nike. I love Nike personally my whole life, mainly just because growing up, you weren't cool unless you had some Air Force Ones. So I just had to do it. I sucked it up. I said, yep, let's do it. I'm going to hop on a plane. Came back, it was 3 days in a row of just drawing portraits. And I got the hang of it eventually. I was super jet lagged, but I did it. And here's some of the ones that I did. I think I ended up taking more like 10 to 15 minutes per portrait, but nobody really minded too much. I think I did a pretty good job. And I mean, had I let my insecurities get the better of me, first of all, I would have spent way more money in New York because I would have been there like double the time. But secondly, I wouldn't have formed the relationship that I now have with Nike, and I have worked with them countless times since. They actually called me back to do more portraits in Melbourne like the next week. I wouldn't have gotten over this fear of, I mean, to be fair, I still get scared drawing in front of people, especially when it's a portrait, because people are very sensitive about how they're perceived. But it's severely less than what it used to be. I used to be really, really worried. And now it's just like an initial, okay, this is scary. Nope, we're going to do it. So yeah, those are a few projects where I had to overcome a really, really intense insecurity of myself, in personal insecurity or creative insecurity. I just had to push it aside to get the job done. And I'm glad I did. And you'll find you're always glad that you pushed it to the side. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my insecurities for a bit of a vulnerable moment as a creative, because I think it'll help people understand. I think a lot of them are going to be common themes, but also because we're about to pop into an activity that I want you guys to participate in. So my insecurities, main one that I initially had my whole life, literally my whole life up until about 25, was a fear of putting my work out there. So initially that was a fear of people seeing my work, whatever, wherever it was. So my work stayed in my sketchbook, closed at the bottom of my wardrobe. Nobody would see it. Not my mom, not my dad, not my brothers, not my partner, nobody, literally nobody. And then my partner found my book at about 25, literally, and he mentioned how good he thought it was and that I should study and something, pursue it as a career. Eventually, I got used to people seeing my work, and now I was scared to put it out there on social media or on the internet. So I had an Instagram, but I didn't post my work because I was worried of what the internet would say, because there are so many keyboard warriors. Like, people can just say what they think and don't matter about the consequences. So that was my next fear in that regard. But started posting stuff up on my Instagram, got a couple jobs. Then my next fear in that realm was exhibitions. I had never done an exhibition. I was so scared to put myself out there in that way, have put in all the effort of putting together an exhibit, a body of work, making flyers, inviting people. What if nobody shows up? What if there's not enough work in the body? Maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe people don't like it. So many fears around that. And I had actually my first exhibit 4 years later, in December last year, and it was amazing. I did a series of portraits of different people in different walks of life, different ages, different sexes and genders and nationalities and backgrounds and beliefs. And I did little interviews with each of them that accompanied the artwork. And we had an augmented reality element that when you looked through your phone, the artwork would be moving and speaking their story, which is really cool. And the last part of this realm of fear is talks and workshops. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but my voice has been really shaky this whole time. I'm an extrovert, but I still find it super scary talking. So especially when it's about me and my work, purely because there's kind of that imposter syndrome, like, who am I to be talking about myself in front of all these people? Next fear would be fear of negative criticism and judgment. I think we all have that. Fear of drawing live, as I mentioned, in front of people. Whatever that fear is for, fear of stuffing up, I guess, fear of embarrassment and mistakes. Fear of failure, just in general. And I think that is necessarily when you say to the world or to the people around you, I'm going to do XYZ. And then you actively try to do XYZ, but you fail. And then the last is fear of rejection. So in terms of my art, fear that people won't like it, that it doesn't mean enough. I have this thing where my art doesn't necessarily have meaning behind it. I just draw things that make me feel good and that I think will make others feel good. And I think a lot of people have this idea about art that it has to be deep and have a really, really deep and profound meaning. But to me, I just like art that uplifts, and it doesn't need to be that deep. And I think some people snub their nose at that. So there's a fear for me with that. But in terms of personal fears, I also have two main ones. So one would be around my age. I'm 30 now. And if you guys have parents that are really, really old school, you would know they're on your back. You feel like you haven't got that successful life that you thought that you would have when you were like 5 years old. So the family and the kids and the house and the car, all those things, I can't even drive. So all those things kind of gives me this insecurity about my age versus the success I have made. But at the end of the day, I'm very blessed. I am able to have a full-time career out of what I love doing. And I've met amazing people. I've traveled the world. I really couldn't see my life any other way. These fears can either have the ability to make us more determined and work harder, which is actually possible, or most likely in most cases, cause us to freak out, hesitate, and second guess ourselves. So how can we get that transformation started? I'm going to give you some tools right now. So if you guys want to, feel free to get a pen and paper and write this down. Otherwise, it's definitely something you can do later on. First, you've got to identify your insecurities. So I've just listed out mine. Feel free to list out yours. Introspect, sit quietly with a pen and paper and write out all the things that you're afraid of or insecure about. All of them. Really listen to the self-talk playing on loop in your head. What is it telling you? You may not notice, but a lot of people have this loop that's going on and on in the background of everything you're doing. And it may be telling you you're too lazy, you're not accomplished enough, you're not smart enough, you're too ugly, you're too tall, you're too smart, you're too young, you're too old, too clumsy, shy, anxious, emotional, whatever that loop is. Really take note of it. Listen and write it all, and I mean all, write it all down. You may find a common theme or a common denominator where all this stuff bubbles up from. But aside from that, it just brings some clarity. It's cathartic, and it brings a bit more of an understanding of yourself, your mental patterns, and the way that you function. In addition to writing this list, which I think is a first base jump, so a starting point, but I also like to meditate and journal. So I journal almost every day and meditate almost every day, but journaling just keeps you accountable and meditation just keeps you calm. So I think they're really, really good tools helping with anxiety and insecurity, which I've done a lot of work on, as I mentioned. Now we get to transforming our insecurity, super exciting. For this one, we write a list of all our goals, ambitions, and wishes. Like, could be the fanciest, most ridiculous goals that we have for our life. For the sake of this exercise though, we choose one really strong one to focus on. So either one that you think is most attainable but you just haven't done yet, or the one that you really, really want more than anything else. Let's focus on that. So we're going to create a mind map from this goal and write out some branches with the particular fears we have surrounding this goal, keeping the list minimal, like about 5. And then we create a new mind map with a positive opposite to what we wrote originally. It's a lot to process. I'm going to show you what I mean with my own goals and insecurities. Vulnerability. I don't know where all these scratches have come from, but anyway, world-renowned artist and designer. That could be my goal. So we're just going to branch out a few fears that I may have with regards to this. So the The first fear could be that I'm unworthy. I'm not worthy to have the acclaim that I want. I'm not worthy to have the attention or the success or the money or wealth that this kind of role would bring. The second would be, I'm an imposter. Who am I to think I could be this great artist? Why do people think I'm so good? I'm not. If they only knew what I really am like, blah, blah, blah. The next is a fear of the unknown, a fear of what could happen. The next is scrutiny or judgment, so fear of what your community would say or think about your work or your role. And then the last would be a fear of rejection, a fear of complete denial of who you are and what you represent in your work, or even in this day and age, that could be cancel culture, being cancelled. Once you're in the spotlight, all your stuff comes to light too. So we're going to flip that and we're going to branch out to the opposite of those negatives. So whatever the opposite to your negative is, write that out. So as opposed to unworthiness, we're writing worthiness. You are worthy. As opposed to imposter, it's embodiment. You are this thing. You exude this thing. You sleep, you breathe, you drink this thing. Instead of fear of the unknown, it's excitement for opportunity. Instead of scrutiny and judgment, it's appreciation and celebration. Instead of rejection, it's support and community. So now that you've got, and this is why I said keep it kind of small, because you want to have only a few things that you can touch on every day. Once we've got these 5 things, moving forward, at any given moment when you feel your anxieties triggering, think to yourself, am I acting and thinking from a place of worthiness, embodiment, excitement, appreciation, community, and support? Now, yours may not necessarily be the same as mine because you've got a different goal and a different fear surrounding that. But for the sake of this exercise, this is what we're working with. So say I'm preparing for a speech for Creative Mornings and I am fearing the unknown. I'm fearing rejection. I'm fearing people thinking I'm talking too fast or too slow, or my computer stuffing up. I can change that fear of the unknown to excitement for opportunity. Excitement that, hey, I get to meet new people. I get to talk in front of a new audience. A bunch of my art has been displayed throughout my presentation. Maybe I book a new art gig, or maybe I book a new gig speaking at an event. So transforming that into excitement, I feel like that's a pretty obvious transformation. So I'm going to go with a different one, which would be judgment, right? I fear judgment. I fear that you're going to think I'm a bit self-indulgent, or I'm too loud or colorful, or my slides are a bit childish because they're very, very colorful. But transforming judgment into appreciation. So not only appreciating the opportunity that I have, but appreciating people. If I want community and I want my community to support me, I've got to support my community. So if someone comes to you and they want help with, I don't know, a question, somebody wants to know how to get started with art. Rejecting someone would be, why is this person messaging me? I don't know you. I don't know you anything. I don't have time for this, whatever. Ignore the message. But if you are striving for community and to be supported by your community, you've got to show that as well in your actions. So that would, in this situation, look like taking 5 minutes out of your day to reply to this person. And maybe if you get this request constantly, you can make an IGTV or a YouTube video about it to answer the question. Then you can just send them a nice little email. I've actually addressed this. Here's a link. Hope that answers your questions, or something like that. So yeah, there's many different ways in life that if you tweak the small thoughts and gestures that you have throughout your entire life, it makes a big difference in transforming your own insecurities, self-criticism, anxiety, judgment, all that stuff, the good stuff. Moving forward, I would just say constantly check in with yourself, how you feel and how you think. If insecurities are a big triggering thing for you, I would say whatever those 5 things that you figure out are your positive movements that you're going to move forward with, maybe put them somewhere where you're always going to see them. So put them on a sticky note and pop it on a mirror, or tattoo it on your hands, put it as an alarm in your phone that goes off once a day, or as your desktop background. There are so many ways to do it. And aside from that, just listen to your mind, check in with yourself. You can do that by journaling, or you can just do it throughout the day whenever you feel certain emotions coming up. Listen to the stories your mind is playing on loop. Are they helpful or harmful? Majority of the time, they're going to be harmful. So if that's the longest and most constantly running conversation that you have is with yourself about how shitty you are, you got to figure out a way to steer away from that, because that can be really detrimental to your mental health and your sense of self-worth and confidence. Personally, journaling daily helps me. It helps with checking in, being self-accountable, and recognizing mental patterns. It's also very cathartic. There's a lot to be said about bringing something out of your consciousness and into the physical world, so you can have a look at it. And sometimes it may just be that you're thinking this horrible thing on loop, you don't even realize, but once it's out, once you've told it verbally to someone, or you can see it reflected on paper back at you, you can realize how ridiculous it is. And sometimes that's all you need to move forward. Another would be meditating. I know a lot of people think that meditation isn't for them, but there are literally hundreds or thousands of different meditations. So there's definitely one for you. No matter the type, meditation quiets the mind and the ego. It can help dissolve stress, anxieties, fear and criticism, and increase love and abundance and confidence. I love meditation. And my last note would be, just be kind to yourself. Everyone is insecure about something, so you're not alone. And it's just how you move forward that counts. All right, that's it for me, guys. Thanks for listening. Sorry about the random scribbles. I don't know how they got there. This is where you can get at me. I really don't know how that happened.
Bianca, thank you so much. Wow, Bianca, that was so beautiful. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing those awesome tips. I was doing that along as you were going through the steps. I love that one where it's like brainstorm or mind map all the negative thoughts, and then like what's the opposite. It's such a simple but powerful thing. I hope everyone takes it on and does it, and I hope something really positive comes from it. And it's really beautiful to see where you've come, and it, like we spoke about it, to me you are this like beacon of like expressive, secure, like just, you know, this, you just have this awesome energy, and you wouldn't know that there's insecurities, but as you said, everyone has insecurities. So it is something that, and especially as artists and creatives, it's such a big thing for all of us. So I think this was just so what probably everyone needed to hear. So thank you so much for that. And there's been some really awesome comments going on in the chat as well. Okay, so guys, we've got time for Q&A. So how it's going to roll, Bianca, you just stay there, and you guys need to raise your hands if you have a question. So someone, if you have a question for Bianca, raise your hand. Dude, and then this is like where I need like the thinking music, waiting music.
I definitely have something. Okay.
Oh, so wait, were you going to say something?
I have something I want to share, which wasn't necessarily something I wanted to put in the speech, but I really feel like meditation is important. I think it should be like taught in schools, basically. So I would really urge you to try. And if you're new to it, I know it can be super difficult to get into, but there are literally apps you can download that are free that have guided meditations. So literally prompts to tell you what to do. So it's not so daunting to start. So the one I started with is Oak, O-A-K, Oak.
Yeah.
Very simple app. It's free. There's only 3 types of meditation you can do. One to get better sleep, one to quiet the mind, and another that sends love to yourself and to others. I really love that type. But yeah, you can, so there's only 3 types. So you start out kind of branching out different styles of meditation, and there are different lengths. So you can start with 5 minutes. And then once you get good at keeping your mind in check for that long, you can move on to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I think the max is 20. And then once you've graduated past that and you get a bit bored with those meditations, a really, really good app is Insight Timer. And that one's really dope because it has I don't know how many, but I'm assuming hundreds of thousands, which is a lot, of different meditation teachers from all around the world. And they've all got like many, many, many different meditations and courses even that you can do. It's really crazy, like for transforming anything. It could be depression or fear or guilt or hate. Anything that you have, there's a meditation for it. And that's like my favorite app ever. And if you DM me, I can let you know all the books I read and the different teachers I like on Insight Timer and stuff like that.
Amazing. Okay, thank you so much. That was very, very useful. And we've been putting that in the chat as well. So guys, if you missed any of what Bianca just said, it's in the chat. Okay, we have a question here from Daryl. So I'm going to unmute you, and Daryl, okay, Daryl.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't sure if it was going to be in the chat or vocally. Sorry, the question for Bianca was, did your discipline about unblocking come from somewhere in particular, or did you work with a coach or a counselor, or is it just something that you developed over time?
Good question, I guess. It was something I developed over time. I definitely put in work. I think my journey actually started with meditation, to be really honest. I did this meditation course in the Blue Mountains. It's called Vipassana. It's all over the world. It's a meditation technique that the Buddha taught. This course, I don't know if you guys are from Sydney, but whoever is, this course is literally free and it's 10 days. It was really transformative for me at just realizing a lot, like how often we bitch in our conversations, how often we're judging other people, and how that actually makes you feel internally, which is not a good feeling ever. So I don't bitch or talk or criticize other people anymore. I haven't for years. And that's really transformed my way of thinking and increased my self-confidence. And I'm very hard on myself. I wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist, but something close to that. And there's something really powerful about stopping that kind of talk externally. It also transfers into the internal world. I think that was my first introduction to that kind of train of thought. And then I started downloading the meditation apps, and then I started journaling and actively started trying to transform my fears and insecurities because I noticed they were holding me back. I had always wanted to be an artist my whole life, but I'd never shown my work to anyone, and I was working in retail. Like I actually studied forensic science at university, and science was like my least, it was the subject I was failing in high school, but I applied to forensic science and got in. And then I finished the course and amazing, graduated. They wanted me to do, what is it called? Masters. But I couldn't figure out, once I finished, I was just thinking, I really didn't want to do this for a career. I don't know why I did it. And my dad told me, he was like, Bianca, the reason you chose this career is because it was a thing that you were worst at. And you would prefer to fail at something you know you're bad at than try to do what you enjoy and fail at that. And that really hit me. And that's when I realized, okay, yeah, maybe I should start working on my insecurities. And that's my answer.
Good answer. Good answer. Okay, we have another question here from Noura. Is it Noura Lim? Noura, unmute yourself if you can you say something? Can you unmute yourself, or do we have to do it?
Oh, here you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Where are
cool,
you?
Thank you.
Says, where's NL? Oh no, that's just your initials. Are you in Sydney?
Yes, I am in Sydney.
All right, ask your question. Take it away.
Yes, can you guys hear me? My audio has a problem sometimes.
Okay.
We
Can you
can,
hear me?
yeah, we can
Awesome.
hear.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, Bianca, thank you so much for your talk, and then I really loved it. As soon as I saw you, like, you looked so cool and everything. But yeah, as exactly Nicole said, like, you look so cool. And then I just like looked it up on your Instagram, and then I just follow you like straight away. But then yeah, just thank you so much for sharing your vulnerability and everything. It makes you even more cool. You got to know that. Yeah, so I have a lot of fears, I guess for everyone, have these fears inside of them, and then I think they just live with it. But one of my insecurity, I feel really daunting to say this in front of 102 people. But I'm from originally from South Korea, and then have a fear of speaking English in front of people. So I'm working as a professional here in Sydney, but it took me a lot of time to get to this point. But yeah, so I speak fluent English, but it is really daunting every single time I speak anything, even speaking yes or no. So yeah, so sometimes the vulnerability or insecurity of mine became my attitude. Like I self-defense myself too hard, and then I just like be really cold person sometimes, just to hide those insecurity. So I'm just wondering that how you actually prevent that your vulnerability or insecurity being your attitude in the society.
Well, first of all, I think it's awesome that you are happy to speak in front of all these people. And I think we all understood you, so props for that. I think that, like, I'm not a psychologist or anything like that. I'm just sharing my experience. But you notice that it's affecting how you interact with other people. And I think that's the first step. And if that's not something that you want, which I'm sure it isn't, you just need to, the way I did it is starting to, whenever you feel yourself acting that way, in the middle of it, stop. And then you can apologize to the person and make it, if you make a verbal effort to change it in the moment, you'll actually notice changes really fast. So when I first noticed that bitching was really prevalent in my life and people are always gossiping and talking about each other, I mean, it's easy to get carried away in a conversation and then just say, yeah, and then did you hear what he did to this person? And did you hear that this person said this? Oh my God, I can't believe it's scandal. I would, in the middle of the conversation, be like, actually, this isn't productive. It's not really bringing a good vibe for me. Let's just change the conversation. And then that's it. You know what I mean? You need to call yourself out verbally, and that'll shock your system into realizing, oh yeah, this isn't something I want to do. It's similar to like when people hit themselves when they start craving a cigarette or something like that. Something physical that shocks your system into, oh yeah, that's not what we want. So for you, it could just be that you tell yourself, that's not nice. Let's not do that anymore. Something like that. And then it'll become easier in a couple of weeks. You'll notice that it goes away. Depending how deep it is. But I think if you really, really try to get it every single time you can, and you stay conscious of it, you got it in the bag. And I don't think you should feel insecure about that at all, because you can obviously speak 2 languages, and I definitely can't. And I'm sure a lot of the people here can't either. So that's awesome.
I agree with that. Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. It was super brave of you, and it was a good question. All right, it's 10 o'clock. Okay, there was one more question that was just in the chat, and it was, yeah, it was, I can't see it now, but it was just, what's next? Bianca, it was like, what's next for you? Like, projects or anything you're working on, or anything you're aiming towards that you want to share with us?
I'm working on a campaign right now with Nike, which is really cool. But I can't share a lot about that yet, just because it's still in the making. We're shooting in a couple of weeks. And I'm actually in the middle of doing all my art and illustrations for that. So as soon as we finish this talk, I've got to get back to it and start drawing again. But there's that, so keep your eyes out for that. And I'm actually kind of productive, but I'm also doing something for Puma right now, which I should be posting about soon. I've done a couple of custom sneakers for them, which they're going to have on display in store. And then people that enter a competition will be able to win a pair of custom sneakers. So I'll post about that when it's live, and then you guys can enter a competition to win a custom pair of sneakers from me. But I think that's it. I mean, it's hard to, I had a bunch of goals for this year, but it's hard to know if those are going to work out because of obviously the state of the world right now. So yeah, I'm just taking every day as it comes, and just, I did want to do another exhibit or two this year, but one in Melbourne and one in Sydney, but it's looking like that may not happen. So yeah, I'm just seeing where it takes me.
It's a bit of a theme for 2020.
Yeah.
I know we've heard like poor Lenka couldn't do her tour, and we, you know, it's probably not the year for setting goals. Who knows? Or maybe it's goals that we,
internal goals
that we
hadn't,
that we didn't
your
think.
internal world. So let's get those insecurities ironed out.
Yeah, perfect. All right, guys, we will be finishing soon, but firstly, so we're going to go over to Bill in a second, but guys, just show Bianca some love, some jazz hands, and some, I don't know, in the chat, tell her how fabulous she was, because that talk was really beautiful, and I think we're all going to walk away with some really cool lessons there. So Bianca, thank you so much for doing this. And she actually is really working on something with Nike, and she literally said Nike can wait because it's Creative Mornings. So I feel we're quite blessed. All right, so thank you so much. That was really awesome. So guys, we're going to go over to Bill. So Bill is in the Blue Mountains drawing away on his Wacom tablet. So Bill, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Okay,
wonderful.
Show us what you've done.
Cool. Thank you so much, Bianca, for your wonderful talk. It was really interesting. So here's my drawing. I had a drawing of Lenka with some of her beautiful music. A bunch of Bianca's talk around how she sort of got into the industry and got started, and some of the amazing discussion around sort of dealing with insecurities. So that's where we got to, and we'll be posting it online soon. So thanks for watching, everyone.
You're so fire, Bill.
Thanks, Bianca.
We love you, Bill.